Imagine waking up billions of years in the past. The air is toxic, the oceans are deadly, and the land is ruled by creatures beyond your worst nightmares. Every prehistoric era has a different way to kill you, but which one would be the most painful? Let's travel through Earth's history and find out how you would die in every prehistoric era. Let's start at the very beginning, a period so hostile it barely deserves to be called Earth at all. The Hadean Eon, roughly 4.5 billion years ago, and here's the thing, you wouldn't even get the chance to die in an interesting way. You'd die instantly, and not from any creature, because there weren't any. The surface of the planet was largely molten ore, freshly cooled rock, bombarded constantly by asteroids and debris left over from the solar system's formation. The atmosphere, if you could call it that, was a toxic mix of methane, ammonia, and carbon dioxide with essentially zero oxygen. You wouldn't suffocate slowly, you'd be dead within seconds, cooked by surface heat in some regions, instantly asphyxiated in others. There's no creature to fight, no decision to make. The planet itself simply isn't compatible with your existence yet. Now let's jump to the Archean Eon, roughly 3.5 billion years ago. And things have improved, marginally. The oceans now contain the earliest life, simple single-celled organisms. But the atmosphere is still oxygen-free. Your body would begin failing within a minute or two of exposure, a slow creeping hypoxia rather than the instant death of the Hadean. There's no predator here waiting to kill you. The environment does that job entirely on its own. Biology depends on. Let's move to the Great Oxidation event around 2.4 billion years ago. And here's where things get darkly ironic. Cyanobacteria began pumping oxygen into the atmosphere for the first time in Earth's history, a gas that was catastrophically toxic to almost every existing organism, which had evolved in its complete absence. Oxygen wouldn't kill you, since your body is built to use it, but you'd be standing in an ocean and atmosphere in violent chemical transition, choking on volcanic gases and drinking water saturated with dissolved iron that would poison you within days even if the atmosphere somehow didn't get you first. Let's talk about the Cryogenian period. Roughly 700 million years ago, better known as Snowball Earth. This is a period where, according to the leading hypothesis, the entire planet may have been covered in ice, glaciers extending from the poles potentially all the way to the equator. Here, death is simple, brutal, and slow. Hypothermia would take you within hours in the open, faster in wind. There's no shelter, no fire, no fuel to build one. The one advantage of this era is that at least nothing is actively hunting you. The planet is simply trying to freeze you to death, methodically, and it would succeed long before you starved. Now let's arrive at the Cambrian explosion, roughly 540 million years ago, and this is where things finally start to feel like a horror movie, rather than a chemistry lesson. Complex animal life has exploded into a bizarre variety of forms, most of them entirely alien to anything alive today. Anomalocaris, a meter-long predator with grasping spiked appendages and a circular tooth-lined mouth, patrolled the shallow seas as one of the largest and most efficient hunters of its time. If you were foolish enough to wade into Cambrian waters, you would be seized, torn, and consumed by something with no brain to speak of and no interest in you beyond nutrition. Death here is fast, mechanical, and utterly indifferent. Let's bring up the Ordovician period. Around 450 million years ago, home to sea scorpions, large enough to be genuinely nightmarish. Some species reaching over 2 meters in length, armed with grasping claws capable of crushing shelled prey. This era also ends in one of Earth's first mass extinctions, driven by a sudden and severe ice age that dropped sea levels catastrophically. If the sea scorpions don't get you, the abrupt climate collapse will, freezing coastlines and starving entire ecosystems within a geological eye blink. Now let's talk about the Devonian period. Roughly 400 million years ago, sometimes called the Age. This is where Dunkleosteus enters the picture. An armored fish the length of a bus with bony blade-like structures instead of teeth, capable of biting through the armor of other massive fish. There is genuinely no good place to be in a Devonian ocean. Whatever depth you choose, something larger, faster, and better armored than you is already there, and it has been perfecting the art of killing for tens of millions of years longer than you've been alive. Let's move on to the Carboniferous period, around 300 million years ago, famous for oxygen levels considerably higher than today's, which allowed insects and arthropods to grow to genuinely disturbing sizes. Meganeura, a dragonfly-like insect with a wingspan approaching 70 centimeters, patrolled the skies as an active predator. Arthropleura, a millipede over 2 meters long, moved through the undergrowth. Neither is necessarily lethal to a human on its own, but the combination of giant biting insects, toxic swamp gases from endless decaying vegetation, and oxygen-rich air that makes fire spread with terrifying speed and intensity makes this one of the more chaotic ways to go, burned alive by a wildfire that moves faster than you can run. Now here's the big one, the Permian period, ending around 252 million years ago in an event scientists call the Great Dying, the most severe mass extinction in Earth's entire history, wiping out an estimated 90% of all species on the planet. Massive volcanic eruptions in what's now Siberia pumped so much carbon dioxide and sulfur into the atmosphere that global temperatures spiked, oceans acidified, and oxygen levels in seawater collapsed entirely. If you landed here, you'd likely die from the air itself, toxic volcanic gases drifting across continents, combined with heat extreme enough to sterilize entire ecosystems. This isn't death by monster. This is death by a planet actively trying to end nearly everything living on it. Let's bring up the Triassic period. Roughly 230 million years ago, where the first true dinosaurs emerge alongside genuinely bizarre reptilian predators. Postosuchus, a heavily built crocodile relative walking on powerful hind 131 legs, hunted with bone-crushing bite force. The climate here is also brutally hot and arid across much of the supercontinent Pangaea, meaning even if you dodge every predator, dehydration in a landscape with painfully few reliable water sources would likely finish the job within days. Now let's talk about the Jurassic period. Around 150 million years ago, the era everyone pictures when they think dinosaur. Allosaurus, a fast and powerful predator roughly 9 meters long, hunted in packs across what's now North America, and its serrated teeth were built specifically for slashing rather than crushing, meaning death here often came from blood loss rather than a single killing bite. The oceans aren't safe, either. Liopleurodon and other massive marine reptiles patrolled Jurassic seas with jaws capable of crushing other large predators in a single bite. Let's move to the Cretaceous period, roughly 80 million years ago. Home to Tyrannosaurus rex, a predator with a bite force strong enough to crush bone outright. And Spinosaurus, a semi-aquatic hunter possibly larger than T. rex itself, adapted to hunt in rivers and swamps. And then, 66 million years ago, comes the asteroid, a rock roughly 10 kilometers wide, striking what's now Mexico with the force of billions of nuclear weapons. If you're anywhere on the continent, the initial blast wave and heat pulse would kill you in seconds. If you're farther away, the resulting global wildfires, followed by a years-long impact winter that blocked sunlight and collapsed ecosystems worldwide, would get you within months regardless of how far you ran. Let's finish in the Pleistocene, the Ice Age, ending around 11,700 years ago, where the predators are finally recognizable, though considerably larger and more dangerous than their modern descendants. Smilodon, the saber-toothed cat, hunted with canine teeth, built for a single devastating throat bite rather than a prolonged fight. Cave bears, cave lions, and dire wolves shared the landscape with early humans, and the cold itself remained a constant patient killer, hypothermia claiming anyone caught without fire or shelter during a sudden storm. So which era would actually be the most painful? The honest answer is that the earliest eons aren't painful at all. They're simply instant, a planet with no mechanism for slow suffering because there's nothing there yet to suffer. The genuine contenders for agonizing deaths cluster much later. The Permian's toxic, superheated collapse, the Cretaceous impacts blast, and slow starvation aftermath, or a Pleistocene night with no fire and a temperature dropping past the point your body can compensate for. Every single one of these eras, however it ends for you, tells the same underlying story. Survival on this planet was never guaranteed for anything at any point in its 4.5 billion year history, and the fact that anything is alive to ask this question at all is, when you actually sit with it, extraordinarily improbable.